Hello everyone. So, in this little episode, which is going to be shorter than the first episode because my laptop is absolutely terrible and it took about 2.5 hours to render a 27-minute video. Now, um, this episode is inspired by my brother Sarthas's comment um, on how to get into reading. Now, I think most of the stuff I'm going to say here is probably going to be quite basic and pretty self-explanatory and more of a sort of common sense nature. Um, I think the best way to get into reading is simply to take 5 or 10 minutes out of your day to read a short story. Because Sarthas said that it's difficult to get into reading when you don't have the time or energy. Now, I think one aspect of that, the time aspect, it's interesting because if you come back from work and you have about 5, 6 hours of your time before you have to go to sleep, you have to make a sort of intrinsic sort of value judgment, don't you, about whether or not a story is going to be worth your time. And that's what, for me, I think I genuinely do have this thing where I value story and imagery and the attempt, just the attempt of reading more than watching YouTube videos. Now I watch tons of YouTube videos. I spend a long time on YouTube and just doing other stuff as well. I read comparatively little actually compared to most people, especially proper readers and that. I'll just come out and say that I only read about 45 books last year. Admittedly, that some of them were quite difficult and long, but I don't read that much. Anyway, tangent. Um, the fact that you have to make a decision between whether or not you're going to just sit and do another day of YouTube, just stuff that might not even be that important or sort of worthwhile of your time, or you could sit down and enter this world, this imaginative, creative, artistic world where you're experiencing something different. Now, 'cause I want to make it clear that I don't always think that reading has to be a challenge. Definitely not. I mean, most people that I've encountered in terms of readers and writers for various communities and sort of discussions I've had on forums and whatnot, most of them say that they read for escapism, and that's obviously fine. That's good, and I do that when I can, um, and when I can get into it. I mean, the problem is with reading is that you have to there's an impediment, sort of mental impediment, where you obviously it takes a lot more effort to read than it does to watch a YouTube video, to play a game, to watch a film, to do anything else really. Because you're sitting there having to parse the text and find meaning in it and struggle through some of the the language as well. Um, and also you might have some issues as well that makes reading more difficult. Um, and admittedly, I don't. Sometimes I find reading to be a chore. I just I have this weird intrinsic thing of um, almost needing to read. I feel bad if I don't read, which is an odd thing. I beat myself up a lot for various things, and I probably shouldn't, but um, yeah, I think you have to sort of see reading as an intrinsic. You have to see it as almost. I have to see it as almost more important in order to get myself to sit down and read, because it is extremely easy in this day and age, obviously, to just watch a YouTube video. It's so much easier just to do almost anything else than sit down and read, and I completely understand that. But if I just come back to the fact that the scenario of you get in from work or whatever else, and you've got a couple of hours, is it really better just to watch a video of something you might have already seen before, or you might have already, or just of like content that's the same nature as you usually watch? Is it not better to at least spend just 5 to 10 to 15 to 20 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe even an hour, getting into another world, experiencing, learning a new concept? I'll probably try and keep this to fiction for the minute, but well, even in fiction, you can learn new concepts. You can learn so much, and you can sort of get into this whole other world just from a short story. You can learn new words. You can empathize more. Obviously people read to be understood and to connect with somebody that had similar opinions to them, or for a whole host of reasons, really. Reading is sort of like a spiritual improvement, isn't it? A human improvement, self-development sort of thing. Um, and I think if you don't really see the intrinsic value, I think you have to, actually, here's what it is. You have to actually sit down and do it in order to see the value of it, even if it takes a lot of time and effort to get into that mindset. And I'm still struggling with that. I wish I didn't struggle as much as I actually do. Um, Sometimes, a lot of the time, I'd rather just do something else. But I've learned a ridiculous amount from reading, and sort of when you do find a good story, it's a great feeling, isn't it? Because I get goosebumps from, I don't know, from Gormenghast lines or something like that, or the Iliad, or I'll have to appeal to Tolkien here. My brother is also a fan of Tolkien, not as much as me. I can say that. I don't see how you can experience Tolkien in the sort of the language that gives goosebumps in the Silmarillion, and then not feel and not have this, not see the intrinsic worth of reading in order to read more, basically. And all I can really say is, instead of reading a full book and seeing 300 pages in front of you, just sit down and try and read for 10 minutes or 15 minutes of a short story, especially one that is going to be, is going to be in some way aligned with your interests, your sort of aesthetic interests, and all that sort of stuff. I think that's all I can really say. It obviously does take time, it does take a lot of effort. I wish I could remember more of my sort of development, really, for that, for getting into reading, but I think honestly I just started reading sort of history books and stuff. I can't really remember, honestly. But honestly, for me, I mainly read to inform my own writing. That's kind of, unfortunately, that's the main thing. I'd like to be able to fully escape into a text, to a world, and sometimes I can't do that when it comes to fiction that I really like. But for me, I mostly read to. It's more of a sense of wanting to see how stuff progressed when it comes to older fiction, and wanting to learn new ways of doing stuff in my own writing, since I'm mostly a writer, and I write more than I read nowadays. But anyway, that's that. I think I'm not going to go on too long. So just to summarize, read short fiction. I think even if it's just even if it's just a poem or whatever. Surely it's better surely it is better to read some Clark Ashton Smith poem with weighty language about the cosmos, about the artistic passion and striving and whatnot, and higher and weightier things, than to just watch another YouTube video. That's probably the best possible way that I can describe that. Yeah. And obviously it's that whole mechanical thing. The mechanical part of reading is the difficult part. I wish that you could almost click your finger and somehow just take in the imagery more concretely and easily, and in a more sort of fluid manner than having to actually obviously parse the text and sort of struggle with that and learn new words and all everything that comes with sort of learning to read better, I suppose. Anyway, I'll probably leave it there. Don't want to go on too long. I think I've made my point there. Interested to see what you say in the comments. I'm sure there's more sort of psychological and like genuine, concrete advice that I could give, or that people could give if they know more about that. I'm sure there's parallels to other things as well. I'm sure it's like running, for example. You obviously start off doing little stints of 10 minutes or whatever, then increasing over time. Anyway, that was episode 2. Hope you enjoyed that. I do quite enjoy these. It gives me some time to speak my mind and whatnot. I quite like this new background as well. So thanks for watching. That's Oldenward Books, episode 2. Don't know what I'll call this video, but yep. Thanks for watching, everyone. Cheers.